Let me start by asking you about what you see as being the big headlines at the end of this summit and the big unfinished sort of reform issues that need to be addressed.
So I think that, again, it's a little general, which may be a little bit less than what you're looking for, but the American public and the American investment community will see that the Prime Minister of India is somebody that has really massive aspirations to not only to elevate India's role in the world, but to work on the U.S. relationship, and that that it's a head turner, and I really hope that that the bureaucracies are going to work together to finish some of these more technical issues, and that you'll see Americans getting on airplanes in greater numbers, and that Indians and Americans getting on airplanes to go to third countries and to do business together. So
will this be the defining partnership of the 21st century, as the President has articulated?
I'm a tremendous optimist, and with 2/3 of the Indian public under 40 years old, kids have taken over the U.S. and it's going to happen here as well. And so we're going to be seeing that this is a turning point in this relationship as a partnership of equals. So it's very, very exciting.
So more power to the likes of Mark Zuckerberg. Tarun, is it really a partnership of equals as of now? And are we likely to be the defining partnership of the 21st century, which is the hope and the aspiration?
It's not a partnership of equals, SHEREEN, because we are not equal in size. Yeah. But it is an amazing partnership for the future. It will be the defining partnership. I think we are going to go for $1 trillion of FDI, and a lot of that is going to come from the U.S. We need to put all the regulators together in their respective rooms together, as you talked about, to hammer out agreed rules and regulations for doing business with each other. And I think that's going to go a long way in promoting business. I see big headlines today: Civ nuke, defense, energy.
3 big headlines is what you expect. Easier said than done. And are you expecting 3 big headlines as well at the end of this?
Let me just address civil nuclear for a moment. I've spent 3 years of my life working on the civil nuclear agreement, and it went through in 2008. This is 2015.
Yeah.
The Russians have solved their problems in regard to liability and have signed agreements not only for the 2 they have, but 10 more. The French have their plant going. There is no reason that the United States and India can't resolve the liability problem.
What is the headline? What should the headline be for it to qualify the breakthrough?
I think the headline will be that the companies can move to the next steps in actually getting to a point where they're putting shovels in the ground in those 2 sites.
And you really believe we're there?
I believe we can get to that point this time.
Okay, so that's one big headline that you expect. The other 2?
Well, I think that there is going to be something on energy and climate change. It won't be a China-like peak year, but there's so much that's going on in regard to solar, in regard to renewables, in regard to liquefied natural gas. We're the largest producer in the world. We already have 2 big contracts with an Indian company for natural gas. That will be another one. And there will be progress across the board in regard to climate change and energy.
So it seems pretty clear that we are going to see an agreement as far as the climate issue is concerned. We're not going to go through a China-like agreement where we will agree to a particular year, but we will agree to certain goals. Will that be enough to keep the U.S. and President Obama happy?
Certainly it's going to be a great step forward toward Paris in 2015, and I think it'll be a major achievement. The third headline will be in defense co-production. And there will actually be something in regard to that, in regard to the drones, in regard to the C-130Js. That is going to go forward. And that has, as Ms. Farrell pointed out, tremendous commercial implications as well as defense implications.
All right. 3 headlines from you. What are your 3 headlines hopefully going to be at the end of this summit?
So I think the real headline of the summit is the rapprochement, is the new focus. And I think the way this will play, back home in the U.S. Is just a realization that, as we've been saying all morning, India is back on the agenda. This is a great partnership for the future, and I think that's the true headline. The pictures of the President and Mrs. Obama together with the leadership of India, I think that'll make a big headline and a big splash.
The Taj photo opportunity, unfortunately, will be have to be fast at this point in time. But the three headlines, any specific three headlines that you expect at the end of this?
Yeah, I think that they've been delineated extremely well and prudently too. I mean, there's always this concern that the irrational exuberance. Irrational exuberance, the famous quote by Alan Greenspan, applied to the election of President Modi, and so we need to give him time, I think, as well. But really, from my perspective as the head of the Business Council for International Understanding, it's really a thank you to the private sector of India that's decided to invest in the U.S. I mean, Reliance has placed several $1 billion and has hired thousands of employees in the U.S., which is really very, very important. And the public and private sector may not know that well enough in the U.S. And that TCS is now sponsoring the New York City Marathon, which has not changed my view of running in it at any time soon. But we welcome investment from India, which I hope is also a trend.
Ashish?
Yeah, I think the headline could be the rational exuberance instead of irrational exuberance. And basically for me, in a sense, instead of looking at the headlines in the short run, the last 20 years, the technology has been the game changer for India's own relationship with itself and with the rest of the world, especially U.S. And for me, the next 20 years are going to be even more transformational in terms of the 3D printing, the nanotechnology, the biotechnology, the genetics, and so on and so forth. And that's where, for me, any relationship, if that has to continue, it has to be win-win for both in the long run. It cannot be on headlines. It has to be being useful to each other on a real-time basis, on day-to-day basis, on the long run. And for me, India, because of its youth, the way it can learn the science, it is scientifically and technologically oriented. It has a lot to offer to the rest of the world. And for me, U.S. has a lot to receive from India, and India has a lot to receive from U.S. So that's where, as he said, the headline is basically India is on the radar, and India is very, very confident today than it was before.
Let's hope that the headlines that you've given us here this morning are the headlines that we finally see emerge at the end of the summit. But many thanks to all of you for joining us here with your thoughts and your comments. Thank you very much. Thank you.